His preoccupation with his reputation explains the seemingly odd fastidiousness and caution of his behavior in the 1780s, especially in the appeals made to him to attend the Constitutional Convention of 1787. Many believe that Washington's presence at that convention in Philadelphia was absolutely necessary, but getting him to attend was extraordinarily difficult. How could he attend after promising his fellow citizens 4 years earlier that he would never again engage in political activities? Washington wrote to friends imploring them to tell him confidentially what the public expects me to do on this head, that is, whether I will or ought to be there. How would his presence be seen? How would his motives be viewed? If he attended, would he be thought to have violated his pledge to withdraw from public life? But if he did not attend, would his staying away be thought to be, as he said, a dereliction to republicanism? Should he squander his reputation on something that might not work? Now, what finally convinced Washington to attend, and the correspondence is fantastic, going back and forth between him and his closest friends, what finally convinced him was the fear that people might think that he wanted the federal government to fail so that he could then manage a military takeover. People used that argument to try to convince him to come. So in the end, he decided, as Madison put it, to forsake the honorable retreat to which he had retired and risk this reputation that he had so deservedly acquired. No action could be more virtuous. Secure as he was in his fame, wrote Henry Knox with some awe, he has once again committed it to the mercy of events. Nothing, said Knox, but the critical situation of his country would have induced him to so hazardous a conduct. So they understood what it meant to him. Now, when the convention met, as you know, he was immediately elected its president. You know, he didn't say much in that convention. And you know why? It's not because he was diffident. He had views, but he knew that if he said anything, no one would dare contest him. So he makes one speech at the end, lowering the requirement for representation from 40,000 to 30,000, a benign, innocuous suggestion. It was his way of saying, I'm for this thing. But he never said anything else because no one would dare get up and stand against him. Now, he gave the Constitutional Convention and the Constitution, of course, an authority neither the Convention nor the Constitution would otherwise have had. Be assured, James Monroe told Jefferson, following the ratification of the Constitution, his influence carried this government. After the Constitution was established, Washington still believed that he could retire to the domestic tranquility of Mount Vernon. But everyone else expected that he, of course, would be the first president. Indeed, the convention had made the chief executive so strong, so king-like, precisely because the delegates expected Washington to be the first president. Now, once again, this widespread expectation aroused all his old anxieties about his reputation. He had promised the country that he would permanently retire from public life. How could he now assume the presidency without being, as he said, chargeable with levity and inconsistency, if not with rashness and ambition? His protests were sincere. He had so much to lose and so little to gain. As he said, however, that he did not want to appear too solicitous for my reputation, so that when Hamilton suggested to him that there might be greater hazard to that fame, which is and ought to be dear to you, in refusing your future and aid to the system than in affording it, he had to give way with that kind of pressure. Washington's apparent egotism and his excessive coyness through this whole period, his extreme reluctance to get involved in public affairs and endanger his reputation, have not usually been well received by historians. Douglas Southall Freeman, his great biographer, thought that Washington in the late 1780s was too zealously attentive to his prestige, his reputation, and his popularity. Too much the self-conscious national hero and too little the daring patriot. Some historians might not have understood his behavior, but his contemporaries certainly did. They never doubted that Washington was trying always to act in a disinterested way. His anxious queries about how the world would think this or that, his hesitations about serving or not serving, his expressions of scruples and qualms, all were part of his strenuous effort to live up to the classical idea of a virtuous leader. He seemed to epitomize public virtue.